like if you go to Australia, the members of parliament in Australia are lawmakers. In PNG, up until, say, 1990, members of parliament, or say 1995, were lawmakers. Today, all of us are project managers. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker, Assistant Speaker, sorry. Me too, Mr. Naplong. First of all, commending Chairman Blong CLRC, going through the list of commissioners you have. Many of them are highly respected Papua New Guineans, so I wanted to just acknowledge that for the purposes of this debate. Plenty will talk me like making me suti go the same road where member Blong about and me talk long him. Because a lot of these matters were canvassed during the in 2009 when Sir Michael Somare was still the Prime Minister, and the Honorable Sepukatemu was the Deputy Prime Minister, and he was in charge of the task force responsible for doing the reviews which led to the Vision 2050. And of course, there was a second committee headed by the late Sir Barry Holloway, which looked at the arrangements in our institutions of government. Now, that report is probably collecting dust somewhere in the office of the Chief Secretary. But in any case, the issue I also struggled with when looking at the terms of reference, first of all. And so I asked myself, how were these terms of reference drafted? Because if you look at it, it's heavily skewed towards sorting out the politics. But the problem I have is that, you see, in other countries, you have a very strong public service. And it is largely accepted. And, you know, I sat in a courtroom the other day listening to the Chief Justices make comments. And the Chief Justices basically said, not the Chief Justice, the Justices said, they expect that politicians can have all kinds of unprofessional opinions. So there is that expectation, which confirmed where in other countries, they expect that politicians make a kind thinking. Now, by not at one kind experience level of professionalism. And this is where the level of professionalism, the robustness, strong public service also building. And the expectation is that members of parliament who may not be experts themselves, if they are placed in charge of a department, then the expertise is in that department to guide the minister. Now, what you find today, like every secretary of department I speak to, they tell me, sorry, you must understand, kind politics no Papua New Guinea. Me must harim talk no boss. And then when I go and speak to the minister, and I say, listen, and he'll be like, why not you not like talk no secretary? I said, well, the secretary said I should talk to you. And then the minister says, well, I have to talk to the boss. So everybody is passing the buck up the line. And classical example was this morning, where we had the governor of Oro talk about a storage unit for medicine in his province that someone outside of his province was supposed to be building, and they marked it up. So the system that allowed that to happen was actually not looked at by the CLRC. I would have expected the CLRC to look at the system that allows, for example, you have people in Oro, or the people of Morobe. We just heard about the problems at Angau. But the people of Morobe have no control, or the PHA has no control. The provincial government has no control over who is supplying the power. They have no control over who is supplying the medicine. In fact, they have no say. You know, the governor of Oro made a very important point this morning. In 2019, there was some very strong recommendations to fix the medicine supply problems that we have in this country. unless I'm living in a different time zone, now I'm 25 years. So for 6 years, the recommendations of one of the committees of Parliament was not implemented. Simply put, only no implementing. Heavy Public Accounts Committee looking finish no 2019. Only looking finish. Only finding out finish. Only writing no paper na can presenting no Parliament. 6 years behind. Nobody had solved the problem. Now this morning we play cross no floor. These recommendations don't solve that issue. There are no recommendations to solve that. Of course, if we want to elect the Prime Minister directly, because Prime Minister all the time and by Tokol, you know, I am held by ransom to my government MPs. The politics holds me to ransom. So Prime Minister, I'm arguing that look, you plasoro lomina, let's elect the Prime Minister directly. And there are merits to that argument. But then you come back to the system. If the system is not sorted out, so you got check and balance, no power of no Prime Minister, then you end up with a system where you can see in the US now, the Republican Party is trying to dismantle their court system, they're trying to dismantle their states. The arrangement they made 250 years ago, where they came together as a country, they are now trying to dismantle them. That's the way I read it. And giving the executive government overall power. In a country like ours that is so diverse, you actually need checks and balances law. Balancing also, mihamamas lo harim, Governor Pako kami toktok. And it's always interesting when you listen to the responses of Sir Michael Somare, our founding father, the Grand Chief. All the time, Sato, I need to balance the expectations of all Papua New Guinea. And this is where, you know, coming back to this, when we make some of these decisions, we cannot take into account the interest of one person or the interest of a particular protected species like members of Parliament. We've got to take into account when I'm something where by best saving more people blame. I come back to the argument we had this morning. You know, our poor people of Morobe and the patients in Angau had absolutely no control over how power supply by Kamonuga. There was zero accountability, no check and balance that would have ensured that power supply staff, now this is 5 life or how much life here, would have had an opportunity to be saved. They had no say, people of Morobe. And that same situation exists in every single province. I would have liked to see the system also being included in these terms of reference. Now, me like something was said, I would have liked to see the system being sorted out. You see, in my province, me can't pass no ceiling. The things that I cannot fix in my province, they are all national government responsibilities, all together. And every governor will tell you the same thing. When I'm something where me not of stratimia and me stratim finish, me should really finish the parliament, I should leave in 2027. My job is done. But the problems still remain in my province, which are all national government responsibilities. Now, who said by stratim this plan? I have 2 ministers in cabinet. I talk to them. They are struggling. They're fighting with other ministers and trying to resolve other issues. So, for me personally, I want to see the responsibilities sorted out. Who side I'm responsible, no, what am something, now how about you hold him, there's a man or Mary accountable? You see, if you go to other, like if you go to Australia, the members of Parliament in Australia are lawmakers. In PNG, up until say 1990, members of Parliament, or say 1995, were lawmakers. Today, all of us are project managers. So, mipla yet inside the Parliament, mipla changing job description, mipla. We changed it. Work blomibla em logo na building road na classroom na building bridge na em work blomibla. Lawmaking. You miss a come sinan loyana. One minister by come na em read him law happy na 5 minutes to be passing. Most of us don't even read it. So there's like lawmaking here and work law said now. Whose job is that? It's basically a job that you miss a less lawmaking, but because we have to do it, we are forced to come and do it. I have had 2 prime ministers sit in that chair, including, with respect, the current prime minister. I'm saying, sanab na talk. You bla kisi money, bla na go lo place na make it work. So there is your charter. Kissing 10 million, 5 million, whatever million, go lo place na make it work. No can stop lo parliament. You know, in other countries, parliament will sit for 6 months of the year. Mipla, we are struggling to make 35 days in a year. Not even 1 month, Mipla sa sit down. If you add all the days, Supreme Court tried lo 40 Mipla lo sina namas, 42 days. 40 Mipla, or 63. And we don't even make the 63. Because Mipla must run go lo place na. No got workman lo work in breeze, so remember you must go na work in breeze. No got man lo work in classroom, so remember you go na work in classroom. I want to see the system fixed. And sadly, with all the good work that CLRC has done, there's nothing here to fix the system. And that is my complaint. I would like to see more checks and balances built in, and I regret that I haven't read the full report. Me too, one kind miluluta so long summary taso. If you can fix the system and strengthen the system, it doesn't matter what your politicians are doing. System by stronging. That's what happens in other countries. Correct. Our institutions are so weak. Now, all the people of Papua New Guinea are an institution and weak. So, you know, if you call the ECP administrator and ask him, how much plan instruction Governor Bird say give you? Emba talk zero. Me plus start meeting once a month, na Governor Bird talk na finish. I don't even call the guy up. I don't call him up and say, pay this contractor or that one. The only time treasurer na Prime Minister complain na talk, ECP, you got plan the money, you plan not spend him yet. Me by ringing him and talk, please, can you spend this money so that the Prime Minister and the treasurer don't criticize me? You plus spend the money. And then he'll say process. I say, okay, I respect your process, but you sit down and start na treasurer criticizing me. Spend the money. Get things done. So this is the issue I have. And you know, I want to reduce the space between accountability and the people who need that accountability. Right now, you see, me cross one them, the Honorable William Duma now money. Because power ema, staba need lo, look out blungem. But the middle brother bien, but middle second. But for the people, middle cross. One can also me sing out on the long. Walking point of water long, Minister of Long Health. And I could see that he was struggling. You know, almost all our curative services around the country only struggle to work now. Because no at Marasin, regardless of what the good minister said, as the government put in 50 million, now all other in Marasin is still coming yet, some man not delivering. The fact of the matter is that our people don't have access. Service delivery is about timing. Suppose one man need him service now take him 3 days, lokisim la service, and dial on amel, well, service delivery has failed. And that's precisely what happened in Angau. So, you got to reduce the time between who is accountable and who is going to fix it. You can't wait until all good member Blomborbe come loyana question him health minister. I would have hoped, and this is the thing I struggled with. If you have strong institutions, and I'll give you an example. Miplalo East Sepik, I was fortunate that time the late Honorable Malabag was in the House as health minister. I've been marking me come up chairman Blomboro Mausi. So we started work when I became governor, thanks to the goodwill of the people of East Sepik. The Honorable Sepuka Temu was the health minister, then we come now, implement him, PHA Blomibla. Today, the East Sepik PHA is probably the most accountable public sector organization in Papua New Guinea. And they have qualified on their own merit to receive direct funding from donor agencies. And that's simply because we strengthen that public service organ. So one can operate like Blongen. We have professional people in there. And I come back to the point that Sepuka was making. Let's not provincialize our public service. You know, when we were trying to decide on who the new CEO of the East Sepik PHA was, all Sepik doctor all strike, already passed lumina to governor and work lumi blaya. Wabla Sepik maskis lawo. And I said, respectfully, I want the best person to get this job. Whether that guy is Chinese, white, from the highlands or from the coast, I don't care. Well, guess what? The board selected someone from West New Britain and is doing a tremendous job in very difficult circumstances. We have to have those kind of strong mechanisms. I had no say. I didn't go and tell them, Makin Deslaman or Makin Deslaman, and board yet only go through a professional company. Not only mark him, the best person they could find. And that person has won the confidence with the confidence of the board of people like the World Bank. So now only can access indirect funding. And this is what I see is missing across Papua New Guinea. We have very weak institutions. Too much political interference in the institutions. You may need to strong him too, so that if it's possible and if the CLRC is going to come up with the next lot of sablabo work, me like him, you look law. Strong him, give him space. Arm's length between the politician and the person in the administration. No can larim des la secretary come up also briefcase carry up minister around biani member. No can larim CEO blo DDA time. Member come na lend them CEO son of staff one them. Briefcase na wet law escort him. Member go back lo place. I see that all the time. We've got to stop that. We've got to allow the professionals to do their work while we can continue our silliness here at our level. So again, I commend a lot of what you've done. Chairman, one time all, good line blow you. But I would have preferred that there was a lot more work done on your terms of reference so that you could look at the institutional issues as well, which are totally ignored here, in my view. Thank you.